night against Clemson as like Odie next week. Cross country has a coach with me on Saturday, and flag football won 1-2 last night and play next Wednesday.
All right, good morning, everyone. We got a special speaker for y'all today. So this man was born in California, stayed there to play in college at Stanford. In 2010, he was drafted in the second round as the 39th overall pick. He played 5 years in the NBA for the Toronto Raptors and the New York Knicks. He's now currently the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks and recently drafted the #1 overall pick in the 2024 draft. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Landry Fields.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go back there. It's like an island. I'm going to do that. This is a terrific, young looking group of individuals. I went to a public high school where getting up in the morning was very challenging. We didn't have Chick-fil-A. We had cookies on campus. And I went to a public school. We didn't have uniforms either, so you look terrific. It's a little surprising to me right now, especially at 7:30 in the morning, but I'm really excited to be here. It's always a great opportunity to speak with a group such as yourselves, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into a ton of different stories. I'm going to tell one, and from that, we're going to get into some questions later, but I wanted to tell this story because I think it really, there'll be some basketball, but there'll also be some things for you to take away that I found super helpful for myself over the years. So, as mentioned, played 5 years in the NBA, so we're gonna take it back to like my second year with Toronto. I signed a 3-year contract, and we're on a West Coast road trip. So just how this works, imagine you're going from Toronto to the West Coast, and we're gonna stop in Sacramento to play the Kings at first. And in the NBA, which is wild, you actually get per diem. Does everyone know what per diem is? So per diem is like the NBA is gonna say, I'm gonna pay you some money each day so you can have food, get all the Chick-fil-A that you want as professional athletes, and you get paid by the day. So West Coast road trip, it's about 10 days. In the NBA, you would get about $122 a day. So you do the math on that one, you're all very smart. So it's the first leg of this road trip. We're in Sacramento, we're on the bus, get on the bus, and the beginning of getting off the bus, you get this envelope. And in that envelope would be the per diem. So at this point in time, it's been a long road trip. I'm getting off the bus and I'm like starving, all right? Chick-fil-A is in my future. And I get off the bus, they give us the envelope, I pocket the cash, put it in my pocket, and then I start to walk out. And as I'm walking out into the streets of Sacramento, like I'm absolutely starving. I don't really know the area too well. So I'm kind of just meandering. And as I get down this street, like I'm turning down, my head's sort of down, walking, and as I look up, I notice like there's people on the street. But I also notice that these people probably call this street their home as well. So I start to get a little anxious. I was super new in my faith, and I wasn't necessarily trying to talk to anybody. It's like as I'm walking, like all I'm gonna do is make sure I just keep walking, don't make any eye contact, and just kind of get to where I need to go. So I'm walking, go along, and then I hear it. Someone goes, "Hey, baby." It's not the moment that I want right now. So I try to keep walking, say, "Hey, baby." I'm like, oh. I look up, I'm like, "Hey." She's like, "Are you a basketball player?" And I'm like, should I skirt this one? But I'm an NBA player, so I got an ego, so I'm like, I am. She's like, "Oh yeah, I used to play basketball myself back in high school until I fell into the wrong crowd." And I'm kind of looking around and just super judgy. I'm like, yeah, I can kind of tell that. But yeah, so what about that? She's like, "But anyway, is there any chance that, I can get some money for some food?" I'm like, "I'm starving." I'm like, I understand, I was starving too. I'm gonna be generous, all right? I'm gonna give her a 20. I've got like $1,000 in my pocket. I'm gonna give her a 20. So I pull it out, I give her the 20, and as I hand it over to her, her eyes light up. I'm like, wow. I know I'm being generous, but I didn't think I was like being that generous. Like it's just 20 bucks. But as I'm reaching across, I look down, and it's not 20 bucks that I give her. I give her the entire amount of cash that I have in my pocket. It's about $1,200. She snatched that so fast, like immediately proving that she played basketball at one point, and just like ran away. Like, I'm floored at this point, just absolutely surprised. So I continue walking on, just absolutely angry at this moment in time. I find a little park, and I'm like, if I find any homeless people, there's no way I'm talking to any of them. But at this time, like, I'm stewing because it starts to show a lot of different things in me, like the anxiety that I have around money, the fact that I just gave this woman like $1,200, and in my mind, I just being honest, I'm like, she's probably gonna spend it on drugs and alcohol, and I probably just killed her in some form or fashion, but hopefully that didn't occur. So, walking back, I go back to the hotel room and lost my appetite, found something, and then like went through the rest of the road trip. So fast forward 3 months after that, walking into our locker room in Toronto, and there's another set of envelopes that's on our chairs there. So this one has nothing to do with money. This one has everything to do with fan mail. Like fans would always send mail to athletes, especially us in the NBA. And they would send these cards, like usually your sports card, it'd be like my rookie card or like that year's card for me at that point in time. And I'm getting it, and mind you, the speed at which I would return these cards would all be predicated on how the letter in which they sent was sent at the point in time and the point they were trying to make. So if they misspell my name, if it was Landry instead of Landry, like I'm gonna take about a month to get back to on that one. If it was like, hey, I'm a fan by extension, like my teacher loves you or my dad's your favorite player, like that's about a week. Or, oh hey, like I heard you play with Jeremy Lin, like that'd be so cool if you could sign my card because of him. Like it's about me, not him, so I'm gonna sign your card for you all the time. Then I get to this one envelope, okay? It's about 3 months after this incident in Sacramento. And this one is completely different. And it starts off by saying, my dearest Landry. I'm thinking like, I've never read a card like this one before. I'm gonna have to send this one back probably in like an hour or two. You quite literally saved my life. Mind you, I might have no idea what's going on with this particular letter. Continues on, you were like an angel for me that day in the Sacramento streets. I was in an abusive relationship with somebody who had been raping me, hurting me, and giving me no way out in life. I was down, and what you did for me in that moment in time absolutely saved my life. The $1,200 that you gave me allowed me to pack up, move to a different city, and get away from my boyfriend at that point in time who was doing all these horrible things to me in that moment. I was absolutely floored. Had no idea that what I was doing by giving that amount of money was going to do anything for anybody. In fact, I thought the opposite. Being super judgmental, I thought this woman was going to spend it on drugs and alcohol. And the reason I tell this story, and I've told it a number of times, is there's 2 lessons here that I just want to share with you before I kind of get into Q&A here. First one is, what you have, or what you possess could be exponentially more for other people. And at the time, like, I wasn't thinking like that. And assuming we're all here because we're athletes in some form or fashion, in the team setting, like what you do, not just for yourself, but for others, has the chance to impact the game in a way that's going to allow you to exponentially raise the standards of not just your group, but your chances of winning. I'm assuming everyone's in a team sport. If you're not a team sport, imagine you're in a team sport. I have the ball, and I pass it to Bobby over there because he's wide open. I hold the ball, and as a shooter, giving him the ball has an exponentially more chance of us being successful than if I just hoarded the ball. Same thing with all the possessions that you have. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson is this. You do not think your way into new ways of living. You live your way into new ways of thinking. That was a mouthful, but I say that again, okay? You do not think your way into new ways of living. You live your way into new ways of thinking. As all of us are on these journeys of faith right now, plenty of times we're going to come to moments where we're going to discern, like God is saying, like, hey, I really need you to do something. And if you wait around for you to feel as if you're ready to do it, you're going to miss an opportunity. It's not just an opportunity for you, but it's actually an opportunity for somebody else. In that moment in time, when I gave that woman that money, the intention was not to give her $1,200, it was to give her $220. However, in doing that act, 3 months later and getting the envelope from her, it radically changed the way I saw the world. Because in that moment, I noticed that generosity had the potential to impact somebody far greater than anything I could have done on my own. And we see this countless times throughout the Bible. I mean, if you think about to where God blesses Abram, ends up being Abraham, saying, I'm going to bless you, this specific family, so that you may be a blessing for the world. That's the same sort of concept. Or that moment in time where Jesus was on the shore and he's asking, probably at this point in time it's just Simon, it's not even Peter, to go let down the nets and catch more fish. And he's like, bro, we've been out after this all night. Like, I'm tired, let's just go away. But because you say so, I'll just let them down. You probably know the story of what's happening. He catches so many fish, it just ends up breaking the nets. Like, he wasn't thinking or really wanting to do something in that moment in time, but because he did it, he was radically transformed by what had happened based off him doing that. If you remember, like, he actually falls down at Jesus' feet and says, get away from me, like, I am a sinful man. That level of thinking had to change, not because he just thought his way into it, but because he actually did something about that. And that's the encouragement that I really want to give you all, is take note of the things that you have and enjoy them, because what you've been given are such huge blessings and it's awesome. We all have things that we possess, but in time, if you allow that to just terminate on yourself, you're actually not going to be experiencing the full human flourishing that you have by sharing it or by giving it to somebody else. And then on the second front, because we're all young here, I still consider myself young, there are going to be plenty of times where I assure you that you are not going to feel like doing something. Back to a sports context, we all know that conditioning is something that's going to be very valuable for a particular sport. Nobody ever feels like conditioning. If you do, God bless you. However, in doing so, that is going to actually give you a complete leg up against the competition in time. And that is consistent, and this is the ultimate truth about reality, where you see it not only in terms of biblical wisdom, but also just in reality. And that's something that I think for you all will be super encouraging and helpful for the rest of whatever season you're in right now, or where you ultimately go as athletes. So with that, thank you again for having me. Paige, you have some questions for me? Got that name right, it's nervous.
Okay, so when y'all filled out your chicken biscuit form, there's a little drop box at the bottom that you could ask questions if you wanted. So we pulled some from Mr. Fields to ask him. So the first one, how does your faith influence the way you run your job as general manager, or like with college basketball or NBA?
Can you hear me?
No, not very.
Oh, you can? Okay. Can you hear me with the mic? Without the mic? Do you need the mic?
All right, I'll do the mic, it's fine. So faith, in line with kind of what I just said, things that I learned in reading scripture or hearing a great sermon, it's always in the context, obviously, of religion or spirituality or within Christianity. However, what's beautiful about this is having that level of belief system means that whatever truth you're learning in that particular story or sermon or passage that you're reading, you can actually take and incorporate into whatever it is that you're doing. You don't always have to dress it up as something super spiritual. You actually can just take it as a big truth of reality, and you will find that those same principles and that wisdom that you're learning actually corresponds and works within the same context. So I love learning new things and then incorporating it into what we do, especially with the Hawks.
What is a common pep talk you give to players when they're in a slump?
If you're in a slump, typically means that you're too concerned with the results at that point in time. And right now, what we see, especially with our young players, is that there's this addiction to the bloom and addiction to the results, and I want it now. Like, you all are in a tough spot, like with Amazon. You used to have to wait for things, but you live in like an Amazon Prime culture, like, I want it now. If I don't have it now, then I better have it by 2 p.m. tomorrow. And what that ends up doing is it trains you to not really enjoy or understand the art of delayed gratification. But when there's a player that's actually in a slump, I try to remind them like all the work that they put into that point, and that every failure that you have, you can just see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Then what ends up happening is you don't fall down, you don't spiral into a complete slump, which in the NBA is one of the worst things that actually happen, because there's just too many games. There's 82 games, it's a grind. If you're caught up on that one play back there and not focused on the next play, now we're gonna have problems, we're just not gonna be that good. So remember the work that you put in. Failure is nothing but an opportunity to learn and grow. and be patient. Give it time.
This one was a question that was asked. Did you consider picking Bronny James in the draft?
No.
Mind you, good player, just like wasn't a Hawk. He was a Laker before from birth.
How did it feel the moment after you got drafted?
The moment I got drafted was one of the most special moments in my life. So I wasn't necessarily projected to be drafted, especially high. I wasn't drafted high, but like I was a guy that wasn't invited to the green room. If you've seen the NBA draft, they have those players that are up and they get to walk and shake the commissioner's hand. That wasn't me. I had a lot more work to do than that. But I watched it from my house, specifically my dad's house, and I was literally in my bedroom, closed the door. I didn't want to watch it anyway because I didn't want to deal with the shame of not getting drafted, where my head was at that time. And I was actually laying on the floor, just watching the TV, and I get a text message, and the text message was from my college strength coach, and he said, "Congrats, buddy." And I don't know if like my TV was on a delay or something because my name wasn't called or anything like that. I thought he was just saying, "Hey, congrats on like a great draft process." And literally like 30 seconds later, Adam Silver, who was the deputy commissioner at the time, called my name and said, "With the 39th pick, the New York Knicks select Landry Fields." Like, I don't even think I heard Fields before I like got up, ran out the room, and like ran around my dad's condo and complex. It was one of the most special moments of my life, but also was a great setup too because there was a huge journey after the fact that I was gonna have to go to. And actually, that's actually something for you to remember too. I know and I hope you all set really lofty, ambitious goals for yourself, but the moment you hit them, make sure you set other ones after that. It's one of the biggest mistakes I made as an athlete and as a player in the NBA is I so desperately wanted to play in the NBA. Like that was my biggest goal growing up. Everything revolved around that. Then I got drafted, and because I didn't set like the next goal of wanting to be like, I wanted to be a champion, but I didn't have anything specifically for me. All my anxiety started to revolve around just staying in the NBA. It started to play with my mind because I didn't think beyond just that big moment in time. Big mistake of my sports career. So I would encourage you to set goals, but once you hit them, set further goals beyond that point to just keep going for yourself. We're good.
When you're choosing a pick in the draft, how much do you look into their character versus talent?
Character is the foundation of what we do. We actually have an assessment tool called the Character Web, where we have 7 essential characteristics that we assess players on, and we gather that assessment based off of intel. So I'll call, let's see, any seniors in here? Oh wow, a lot more than I expected. Great, congrats, have a good year. So if you were an NBA prospect, I would be calling your coach and learning more about you right now for when you were actually draft eligible. And through that, I wouldn't talk anything about your game at first. I would talk about you as the person and try to discern your humility, your work ethic, your competitiveness, your confidence, your basketball, your BBIQ, whatever sports program you're in, and just what kind of teammate you are. And not just the teammate like, "Hey Paige, like we're awesome and you're cool and we're cool," but more like, "Hey Paige, how can I best serve you in this moment in time?" Because your best self is going to be my best self, and vice versa. Those are all really important questions. And along the course of an 82-game season in the NBA, you've got to have a great character to have that. So,
What type of team do you want the Hawks to be known as?
who asked that question? Good question. You get bonus points. We would love to be known, it's captured in this phrase, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Has anyone heard that before? Maybe not. Okay, so, nerd alert, it actually is rooted in Aristotle, and it's attributed to him, but he never actually said those words. It was more like the whole is something different than the parts. And so what that means is that if you were to take all of you and collectively go towards a common goal, all right? You individually could only do so much, but you collectively, what would emerge out of that group would be something completely different than it would just be individual. And so for us in the NBA, we place a lot of emphasis on individuals, but if you watch a number of commercials, it's like Jason Tatum and Trae Young and LeBron James. However, for us, it's taking all those collective players, trying to create a system in which they can work, and then from that emergence would be something that's greater than if it was just an individual. So we would want to be known as a group that leverages each other's skills and strengths for the ultimate goal of moving towards a common goal.
Who's the best player you ever guarded?
Best player I ever guarded, it's Kobe Bryant. Unbelievable work ethic and a maniac on offense. Extremely technical with what he does. And LeBron James as well, just because he was like a freight train. There's a couple times you see him in transition, like running at you, and that's like where my prayers came in at that point in time. So those two were definitely the most challenging. Oh yeah.
How did you balance school and sports when you were in high school?
School and sports in high school was. You all can hear me, right? It's weird because I have an echo when I talk, and it's just like it's an odd thing. It was a challenge, especially in college. High school was a little easier for me. We had a ton of help, and I focused on academics because I knew that if I was not good in school, I would not be able to play in the NBA. This is just my line of thinking, and that's not like, hey, do good in school. You should do very well in school. But it's more about the fact that I knew that in order to get into Stanford, which I really wanted to get into, academics was going to be a huge part of what I was going to have to do. So I really focused on making sure that that work was done first, so that I actually get to the work that I really wanted to do in basketball. So I held both in sync with each other, and I had great teachers. You all probably, especially at Marist, are going to have fantastic teachers. Like, ask for help too. Like, tell them and ask them what they would do if they were in your seats as well, and I'm sure they'll give you some great tidbits on a plan to actually do.
What is the hardest part about your job?
There's a lot. Working with agents can be tough. They're a little slimy. Being a former player, you would assume that like I go and talk to our players all the time. I talk with them a lot, but I actually don't talk a ton of basketball with them. And there's a challenge to that because obviously I played, and I feel like there's some things that I could actually help with that actually undermines our coaching process. So the challenge is, if you were to look at my job, you'd probably think it gets a ton of just roster construction and scouting and whatnot. But when you get to the position that I'm in, I would say about 10 to 20% is actually around basketball, and the other 80 to 90% is around relationships that you're building with scouts, with agents, and your ownership group. And when you are talking with athletes such as yourselves, a lot of it is just like on how you're actually doing in life. You know, like, we forget, especially in sports, that they're human. We're human at the end of the day, and they have the same fears and drives and ambitions and anxieties that some of you all may be facing. And so trying to actually like speak into that at times can be a challenge. So really me doing the work on myself in order to give and share out of the overflow of my own experience is super important for athletes.
All right, so we're gonna hand off the mic to Brendan for a closing prayer. Everyone, when you leave, make sure you clean up your trash.